In this episode, we'd like to cover the basics of creating a Palladium Rifts game. All right, so basic game creation. First thing is that game masters should familiarize yourselves with the base book where you wish to start your characters, and then go ahead and create one or two just small communities that cover the territory that your player is going to be starting in and exploring. Give those communities a bit of a background. Specifically, if you look at the character creation section where it talks about sentiments towards psychics, non-humans, mages, and the coalition, you can use that role table for the community as a whole. You can also give them a government type, like the governor, mayor, council, or is it a warlord? And then create a base economy. Poor area, is it wealthy? Do they use trade? And then establish an accepted currency, whether that's be it gems, rare metals, black market credits, universal credits, barter trade, what have you. And then give your communities base amenities and a few key businesses and key NPCs with names, appearances, sentiments towards non-humans, coalition, what kind of race they are, like really basic things. And then flesh out the town and give local color. And this can be really simple, just little tiny things that will distinguish them from other towns. And you can then introduce a basic conflict ranging from external threats, internal threats, environmental impact, health emergencies, or something that you can come up with off the top of your head. It doesn't have to be unique. It doesn't have to be super special or clever, anything like that. Just any base conflict that you can come up with that gets the players involved and just starts moving a story along. The government can be open about it or secretive. Maybe they're trying to cover it up. And then somehow the players are drawn into the conflict. Next thing you want to do is create a secondary external threat. Roaming band of monsters, black market slavers, militia loyal to an opposing kingdom, anything that tickles your fancy. And then you can introduce your players to Key NPC, who either gives them information for their initial adventure. Basic details that you can use as to what they're looking for and what to expect. Present the players with a single clue, piece of evidence, an eyewitness, maybe a crime scene, even a psychic premonition could be used, or an expert witness, familiar with the location or lore surrounding the main conflict. And then when creating new locations, flush out the area, the sights, the smells, is it familiar or local flora and fauna, whether you're familiar with the area personally or it's just something you read from the book. Go with it if it makes sense to you. Don't get caught up on the details. In the long run, it's not going to matter. You can also use traps and ambushes usually to start off a basic conflict.
Creating NPCs. Break up NPC concepts into three different categories. They can be helpful, oppositional, and a background NPC. Helpful NPCs will give the player characters clues, assistance. Oppositional NPCs are the characters the players will run up against and have to fight. Background NPCs are to add color and context to the game, typically selfish, but might inadvertently help or hinder the player characters in their quest. Basic traits to helpful NPCs is that you can give them a unique name, an appearance, and a function that will benefit the team. A rogue scholar, rogue scientist, city rat are great resources for the local information. Local heroes can be city rats, cyber knights, headhunters. These are people who try to maintain the law and uphold justice in the area. Give these characters a background story and find out how they feel towards the player characters and local events. Helpful NPCs don't necessarily have to be good aligned characters, but are well-meaning and helpful to the player characters and used to move the story forward. Oppositional NPCs are given base combat stats, include number of actions, strike and parry bonuses. Give these characters a basic weapon with a handful of ammo and credits. A rough rule of thumb for most GMs is 50 MDC, plus 2 to strike with melee and ranged weapons, plus 4 to parry and dodge. Basic weapons can do as little as 2d6 MD for vibro swords, 3d6 for energy pistols, and 4d6 for energy rifles. They may even have a smoke grenade or two or a plasma grenade, regardless of what the books say. For these explosives, rate them 2d6 MD to a 10-foot area. Oppositional NPCs can also include archenemies or masterminds who are behind the scenes. These characters are more skilled, have more specialized armor, weapons, and items. Give these NPCs unique names and appearances and a handful of loyal followers. Background NPCs, give them nickname and a basic attitude and motivation. It helps round out the community in which your characters are exploring.
Using the rounding out your character in Rift's Ultimate Edition, there's a section there for motivation. And then town creation. Outside the main large kingdoms are smaller independent cities. And this is pretty much how, well, all of Rift's Earth is, but especially, so specifically North America, there's only a handful of major cities. Chi-Town,
Kingsdale, Wykin,
Merktown,
yeah,
uh,
Dwemer, Lone Star.
so those are the main cities. But outside of that, you got little towns, little villages, and they can be primarily, a lot of them are human, but there's also inhuman cities. There's a lot of smaller independent cities that may or not be loyal to the prevailing power. Okay. So there's these main cities, and then outside of them, like near the coalition cities, independent towns can exist that might do trade with the coalition, but have DBs, psychics, maybe even, underground practitioners of magic. And some towns are organized by various black markets and they hide their true activity. So others can be loyal or even oppositional. A small town of headhunters, for example, outside of Chi-Town can be motivated to frustrate, even maybe even rob from the coalition. This could be a town of minor bandits that run around stealing armor, weapons, ammunition, etc. And then they sell them to the black market or rogue mercenary group. Creating a small town or village can fit into your story narrative regardless of their location. Give them vulnerabilities obvious to players regardless of how clueless the locals are, right? Dog boys, Psy Stalkers can easily ferret out psychics and mages, locate magic items and weapons, etc. These vulnerabilities are exploit for story creation that plays into your larger game vision. Okay, they don't have to be, they don't make a big deal out of. They're primarily there just to progress your story, allow your players something to make something up out of, look into, etc. Some popular tropes can be things like dumb or clueless leaders, thriving underground of thieves, assassins or black marketeers who operate openly under the noses of local authorities. Locals can be dumping toxic or hazardous materials near their only water source, poisoning townspeople. Farming and herding attracts aggressive supernatural monsters that prey on the herd animals or wandering locals. Something to note on that, though, is that typically speaking, I don't remember where it mentions it in one of the Hades or other demon books. Most supernatural demons don't care about animals like that. They specifically prey on animals so that it will attract human beings, humanoids, that they can then manipulate into doing whatever evil they want to do, progress their chaotic, destructive, whatever nature. But that's something you could do too. So town is located on, another trope here would be a town is located on top of a pre-collapsed ruin, infested with entities, burrowing monsters, or a new breed of hostile DBs or nocturnal human mutants. So adding these kind of flavors to your town gives more depth to the game and gives the GM access, just access points to new stories. Whether the players want to follow them or not, that's another story altogether. Go ahead with the conflict creation.
So when you have rounded out your NPCs and your locations, your cities, your towns, whatever, you want to try to generate some form of conflict. Common tropes often used in science fiction are as an invading force, like barbarians are at the gate, bringing violence to the community, or there's a strange or alien invasive species, animal, humanoid, or plant that threatens the town, and no one in 100-mile radius knows how to deal with this threat. You can have a migrating herd of supernatural herbivores roaming into the town's vicinity, threatening local trade and needs to be cleared. But they've attracted supernatural predators that quickly move onto more challenging prey. Refugees, alien or human, have an impact on the local ecosystem and economy. They need to be moved somewhere else as they bring plagues and crime into the area. Black market raiders find themselves near the backwater town, bringing violence to the community and attracting a competing black market group, ending in an all-out war between the two factions in the heart of town. Mercenaries running from a failed mission bring with them their misery as their opponents uses the town's people as a bargaining chip to draw out the injured merc. Or you can have an environmental impact from an active rift that changes the climate in the area, destroying crops, causing forest fires, or releasing exotic radiation that poisons the locals. Towns need to be relocated, and the players have to deal with an effect on the local ecosystem. You can have rumors of a nearby treasure that draws to the region undesirable people who'll stop at nothing to find it.
Hmm.
And then you can also have players who must face off with a threat that, if not dealt with quickly, will have untold effects on the local innocent community. So you're introducing some kind of conflict that's drawing your characters and other local heroes into the area so that they can interact with one another.
I like that. All right, game creation elements and tools. Creative minds spawn countless great ideas. Okay, some may not fit the current game, but could use it or could find use for it in a future game. Say, creating a roll table with various ideas can help GMs to create future games or missions, or set up a pickup game for those nights when all players cannot make it to the table. Now, areas of focus: popular threats, monsters known to specific regions, basic town generator, basic base and layer generator, relevant NPCs that can help advance a game, common in-game reward treasure table, and then common equipment list. These can be role tables that you use for your players, characters, like rewards for them, rewards for NPCs, what have you, or equipment that they're going to get access to, or these can be things that your NPCs can also be equipped with as well. Now, you can give players random in-game rewards, and then players often thrive on loot, right? So give them something unique for their character and play style. A unique custom weapon, armor, medieval device, like an IRMS kit, or let's call it a healing
Medical
kit.
device.
Yeah, medical device.
No, you said medieval.
Oh, medical device. I did. That's funny. A medical device. Yeah, a healing kit. For those that are new to Rift, think of it that way. Sometimes it's really helpful just to have like additional eclipse, or maybe even just weapon upgrades like scopes, hair triggers to help, improved range combat bonuses. Create a list of ideas to frequently reward players with, so that you don't have to go looking for something in the moment during gameplay. It's also good to know who you're playing with, know their play style. Once you do, you can, if you've got somebody that just loves combat, we'll have a couple additional weapon ideas as rewards. Or if somebody loves doing things in the town, maybe rewards that, cybernetics, for example, can be really helpful to players that are trying to stealth through a city, or that want better hearing so that they can hear people on the other side of the wall, door, what have you. Just really knowing your players can help you come up with a reward system, but a reward table that is quickly referenceable during gameplay. Give players additional rewards also for leveling. There's the basic rewards recommended in the books, but honestly, those are really old. I think that typical level up rewards are rather antiquated. It's more, the whole idea of role playing is to have fun, and just really minor level up rewards are not always that fun. So giving access, say, to new armor, new weapons, new magic items, new spells, psychic abilities, alien items that they cannot otherwise purchase is something that will really help them, give them a unique sense for their player character, especially if you make those level up rewards. If you specifically think about what you're going to give them and make it unique to their character, so that say they're a frontline tank, so to speak. If you give them specific level up rewards so that they can actually do their job better, they're going to really connect with that character and like it even more. Giving them additional credits, black market items, gems, all of these just help to tie them into the game better. And during the period between the last game and this game, while training, they can use that time essentially to come up with these new items. One of the worst things that we find when we've been playing rifts in the past, is that you always find yourself cash poor or equipment poor. You're always in a state of scarcity. There's never enough money to repair our items. So why would we go and get into another conflict? Just thoughts like that are constant, especially if you play a game, not just Rifts, but most any RPG based on their standard gameplay. It's not beneficial to follow them completely as stated, because it's not a fun method of moving the story along or just playing your character. These additional rewards that you give, it doesn't have to interrupt or impede your story progress. Make sure that they have the capacity to repair and upgrade armor and weapons.
So in-game balance in a Rift game, dealing with the issue of power balance Rifts has a reputation of being an uber-powered game, pitting a vagabond against a glitter boy in a light forested area. GMs have to remember to keep the game light, fun, and flowing, and assemble around a central theme. When balancing scaling between powers, give a ranking to the OCCs you are bringing into your game. A vagabond against a glitter boy isn't a fair fight, but a group of 10 or more various vagabonds with trenches and a couple rocket launchers and a smoke grenade and traps might prove to be more than a glitter boy can handle. A glitter boy can fall into a foot trap that has 4 plasma grenades, might be enough damage to cripple the foot, slowing them down. Tripwires that let off blinding flash grenades will also elicit a volley of mini missiles from a missile launcher. The question a GM is to ask themselves is, if a one-on-one fight, who'd win this fight in a fair fight? A crazy versus a juicer, 9 out of 10 times the juicer will win. But against 2 crazies, it would be 60-40 outcome. 3 headhunters with the right equipment might take out a juicer or a crazy. A dragon hatchling might have up to 400 MDC and supernatural strength, but an experienced combat Borg with a railgun that does a D6 times 10 MD per burst may outmaneuver the dragon and whittle it down to 0 MDC. A game can be challenging, but shouldn't be at the expense of the player's enjoyment of the night. To make a game challenging, look at a character's level. A party of 4 level 1 adventurers should reasonably take on a group of 4 level 1 black market raiders. That same group should also be able to confront a shifter controlling 2 lesser supernatural monsters and the shifter's familiar. To make it more challenging, you can make one of the black market raiders at level 4, and he has 2 level 1 raiders assisting him. Or the shifter is level 3 and is able to control 1 greater supernatural monster. The monster is the threat and the shifter acts as support, but defeating the shifter might cause the monster to flee the area, losing interest in the conflict. Not all conflicts has to result in death.
If you're coming from Dungeons and Dragons, which I did when I got back into Rifts here about 10 years ago, what I find a lot of the players tend to do is they try to bring their idea of balance from D&D to Rift. Tabletop role-playing game balance is actually it's a bit of a misnomer. It doesn't matter how strong you are as a player or a player group, you'll never have access to more resources than a GM does. Stop sitting here trying to figure out what balance is and just ask yourself, what balance is fun? If you're making a game and you decide as GMs and players, let's make a game where we're all city rat or something of an adventurer class, then you as a GM should not be putting them up against supernatural demons and things of that nature. Have them be similar to the same class that your characters are playing. That said, if your characters are higher level, they have gotten resources and they're now, if you're just looking at the base MDC of their armor, you could potentially put them against those supernatural creatures with a similar MDC threshold. So long as their weaponry, skills, psionics are of similar scope to the threats they're going against, then it's most likely a quote unquote balanced or fair matchup. But just try to have fun really with what you're doing and don't get super concerned with making it as balanced as you would try to do in a D&D game, because they're completely different games and the Rifts is not intended that way.